Hello, welcome to a Capo's Guide to the Backstreet Business, where I will talk about the gun and how to use it. I hope you enjoy my video. The gun's description is, I believe ya, but my Tommy gun don't. The Backstreet Business is an automatic that builds a meter on damage dealt. Effect is activated by pressing V on the desktop, B on the console, or the mode button on mobile. The stats for the gun are plus 33% clip size, plus 12% firing speed, minus 28% damage, minus 31% reload speed, and plus 200 spread. After 500 damage is dealt, an active effect will occur, making regular hits become mini crits, which doesn't apply to headshots, infinite reserve ammo, plus 20% reload, plus 10% firing speed. The breakdown is where we look at the stats and talk about what changes compared to stock and or other weapons. And for the Backstreet Business, the biggest difference is that DPS is lowered and sacrificed for an active effect. However, it is also sacrificed for more constant damage. And for me personally, the difference between a consistent and less consistent damage is that a less consistent gun can do more DPS over a shorter period of time versus a more consistent gun which has more DPS over a longer period of time. For example, a shot-up shotgun can do more DPS in a shorter period of time. However, because of the reload that the shot-up has, stock can do more damage over a longer period of time, meaning that stock is more consistent than the shot-up shotgun. Small note here, this graph isn't exactly 1-to-1, it's just used for example purposes. And why is it important? It's important because the Backstreet Business is more consistent than stock, or especially the FAL. However, considering that it has additional firing speed, it's not really that much more consistent. So, pretty much this was here to just pad out time. Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that! Because of the active effect, this weapon becomes a light snowball weapon, meaning the more damage it does, the better it does for a short period of time. Another example of a light snowball weapon is a roadside rampage. And the thing that all light snowball weapons benefit from is having a constant source of damage to charge up the meter or whatever they have. This could be like a boss or a whole bunch of enemies. In this graph here, you can see stock at the top and the Backstreet Business at the bottom. The height of a line determines the damage it does. As you can see, the stock weapon has a consistently thick line for consistent damage. However, for the Backstreet Business, it's stagnated. Sometimes it has thinner lines representing less damage, aka without the active effect, and sometimes it has thicker lines representing when the active effect is, active and doing more damage, I guess. However, the great thing is that you can decide whenever you have those high moments, meaning that in certain scenarios or that you have more enemies than usual, or, borders, you can manually choose to activate the effect right there and deal with them quicker than other weapons. To summarize, the Backstreet Business is a more constant gun while having lower average DPS than stock, but having moments that you can trigger where you do more damage. Okay, take a deep breath. Now we can finally get to the fun part and understand what this all means. With how I'm using the Backstreet Business, so far I have found two big strengths with the weapon. The biggest strength for this weapon is dealing with borders. It works so well, I almost think the weapon was made for this purpose. First of all, one of the weapon's biggest downsides is a bullet spread, which is completely negated by the borders running directly to you and jumping all over you trying to hit you. After all, it's hard to miss a target that's climbing on you, negating one of this weapon's downsides entirely. The consistent damage allows you to deal with multiple enemies at once, as borders usually come in groups. While with the FAL or something, you probably need to reload before you send the borders swimming with the fishes. The FAL and other weapons usually can only deal with 1 or 2 enemies before needing to reload, compared to the Backstreet Business, which can deal with 2 to 3 enemies before needing to reload. And since most borders come in groups of 3, the Backstreet Business is a lot better for this purpose. Even if there are more than 2 to 3 enemies on a track like Frozen North, where that borders can come in groups of 4, the Backstreet business is still better because of the effect the weapon has. But overall, the Backstreet business is a very versatile weapon, because while it can deal with borders really well, it isn't weaker against regular enemies. And the same logic that is used for borders works well with regular enemies, especially if your lobby is full with lots of people, because enemies are more likely to come out of waves, which allow you to activate the ability, deal with them quickly, because you don't have to spend time going to the ammo box. But it isn't as effective against regular enemies because you need to spend time aiming that you could spend shooting. But it is still, and always will be, a very consistent weapon with a very useful active effect. While the bullet spread sucks, it's not too big of a downside as long as enemies don't go far enough. While it makes you miss some shots and can be very annoying at times, it doesn't make your weapon completely useless against those enemies. And for the long reload time, it's not too big of a downside, because if you dealt all the enemies and you're waiting for more to come, you have time to reload, getting rid of a downside entirely. Another really good upside with this weapon is dealing with enemies that come in waves. Enemies with multiple tracks from enemies to spawn from, and whenever you have a lot of people, enemies have the opportunity to come out in 2 to 3. You know what other group commonly comes out in 2 to 3? I'll give you a hint, it's a word that starts with a B. And this is really great for the weapon, because you can activate the effect and deal with them all super quickly with a shorter reload time, and with dealing more damage. A very important part of this game are the secondaries. Some secondaries serve as guns, like the pistol or Uzi, while some of them are throwable effects like gasoline or toxic waste. But some items are meant to be consumed and give you effects. While there are exceptions, like the Huntsman, most of the time you want to use the 2 ladders. Guns are pretty weak. It is very important when considering what secondaries to use. It can empower or change how you use weapon. And for the Huntsman, I mean that guns pair really well with it. I didn't mean that secondaries are important while using it, just wanted to clarify that. For the Backstreet business, 2 secondaries have sticked out to me: Goku Cola and the Silent Partner. Goku Cola is an all-around good secondary for Gunslinger. I don't think there are many better options for him because he's kinda lacking in the secondary department compared to Psycho or Medic. However, I feel like this soda is especially powerful with the Backstreet business. The Backstreet business is already very powerful with dealing with borders. You often find yourself in a situation where that borders will be boarding your train and you'll have to kill them. And while you're dealing with borders, you're often moving a lot, running backwards and moving erratically, making it harder for medics to be able to heal you. And because borders do a lot of damage, you'll be taking a lot of damage. And generally, you probably don't want that to happen. So you can negate that by using the Goku Cola, which gives you passive healing and damage resistance, making the Goku Cola very useful. So whenever borders, board, you pop both of your abilities and deal with the enemies rather quickly, with hopefully not taking too much damage. The second item, the Silent Partner, acts like an item and a gun, as a special effect carries over to your primary. So recommended by the wiki, I decided to try the Silent Partner for the first time after I unlocked it. So I went to the shop, bought the item skin, and I'll tell you what happened. Results were varied. The Silent Partner is a terrible gun, but an amazing item. Because of the extra 20% firing speed, it is very useful for doing extra DPS. And because of the extra 40% reload speed, it negates the negative 31% reload speed the stock Backstreet business has. And most of the time, whenever you're activating the Silent Partner's ability, you're also activating the Backstreet business's ability, which also has plus 20% reload speed, allowing you to take full advantages of both effects and allow you to have more time to deal great damage. However, that was just the effects of the item side of things. For the Silent Partner itself, it sucks a lot. I can't deny how terrible the Silent Partner is at dealing damage. Especially in the early game, you're shooting yourself in the foot by using this weapon. but you should still use that weapon and get the effect. Also, if you're looking to use this loadout, then you should upgrade damage as the first thing you do. However, if you're using this loadout in the early game, chances are you'll get less XP, that is, less XP gained, and more XP not spent on the Backstreet business. So moral of the story is, maybe a good option would be to start with Goku Cola in the early game, and then transfer over to the silent partner in the mid to late game. However, you could keep Goku Cola the whole time, or the silent partner the both time. Both are very good secondaries and very useful. To summarize, because the silent partner's effects carries over to the primary, the silent partner strengthens the positive side effects of the Backstreet business. So, essentially just making the gun less consistent. However, one major strength of a silent partner is the ability to shred bosses. The reason why it works so well is because stacking both active effects can allow you to put out damage really fast, reload really quickly, and just generally have a super high fire rate, effectively turning your tiny Tommy gun into a full machine gun. Okay, I know that the Tommy gun is already machine gun, but you get the point. I'm going to play the boss fight, and while we do lose, we do pretty well. While the Backstreet business has situational upsides, its downsides are almost constant. These downsides makes it harder to deal with more common enemies. Reduced damage is never good, and the Backstreet business has minus 28%, a hefty amount that makes dealing damage with enemies harder. While it is somewhat cancelled by the plus 12% firing speed, the damage reduction is still impactful for your personal performance. But by far the biggest downside of a Backstreet business is how map dependent the weapon is. On waves like Frozen North or Laboratory Lockdown, the weapon can do really well, as most if not all are Gunslinger enemies and are close big targets that allow you to shred them, like borders. I would say that Crossroads is somewhere in between really good and average, as they have close enemies and some borders. Another one could be Metro, as the enemies are close and the Metro car brings many enemies at once. All the former are stages where the Backstreet business is better than stock. However, most stages are neutral, where stock and the Backstreet business would be almost equal of value, like most of the non-boss stages in the Highway campaign. Even though it does have borders, assuming your team isn't stupid, you'll probably only have one border at a time. However, a pretty big number of maps are terrible for the Backstreet business. Most of these maps are terrible because the enemies could be too far, or a constant flow of enemies rather than them coming in waves. Most of these tracks are too constant, meaning they have a few amount of lanes. If this is the case, that means you can't take advantage of the weapon's active effect, the greatest upside of the weapon. If you activate the effect with only 2 enemies and deal with them, there's nothing else to do other than waiting for more enemies to spawn. But most of the time, your effect runs out first. The biggest and most common downside of the Backstreet business is the enemies being too far away and the bullet spread. So, it's pretty much not a big deal, only had a small number of maps, nothing too impactful like the entire Ghost Town campaign, excluding bosses. But seriously though, a large amount of maps are impacted by this downside, like Industrial Canyon or, Ghost Town campaign. To summarize the entire Backstreet business, it's a situational gun that can be really good when used correctly. Thank you guys so much for watching the first edition of a Capo's Guide. I'm planning to make more in the future. However, quick note before I leave, I want to show you this crazy player encounter I had while recording footage. You probably have seen him. I mean, just look at this guy's stats. I'm jealous. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.